Okay, so let's go back to the software. So now we are going to inspect like the different main um, windows in the user interface. So as you open Webots or you open any simulation, the main thing is going to be the 3D window, which is, like the one here in the center where you can see like the different robots, the different obstacles, you can rotate it, you can pan, you can zoom in, zoom out. You can individually like select any object and you can get like a representation of its coordinate system such as this one. You can Control C, Control B, which I just did while speaking, and I have created a new object, so I can move this object somewhere else and things like that. So this is just your classic 3D representation. Here to the left, this left part, uh, this left panel is the scene tree, and the scene tree is quite important in Webots. So basically every object on the 3D world has associated an entry on the scene tree. So for example, this is the UR3E robot, and as you can see, I've clicked on it and then it actually selected this robot. For example, this is the UR35, the number 10. This conveyor belt is here, like the small one here. So basically every object that exists here also exists here. And here we can do a lot of like different modifications, like we can move it around, changing the values, we can rotate it, we can change its size, we can change its appearance and things like that. So I think it's important to know that every object is here and here. We can do some modifications on the 3D wall, like copy paste and things like that, move them around, but we can also do the same kind of things here. So for example, if I choose this robot and I do like Control C, Control B, you will see that now a new entry appear here. So I have like two UR3, and you can see that it moves around here. I'm going to choose Control Z it to delete it. I'm going to just click delete, and now it's gone. So the next part that we are going to focus about is the text editor. So the text editor is the panel to the right, and here you can see that it has some programming code. In this particular case, it is C, and this is the controller that is going to be inside each of these robots, and it's going to define its functionality. So basically just remember that the text editor is here, and that here is where we are going to put our code, in order to program the robots. And then here at the bottom we have the console, where the console is like, the different robots giving us some kind of output. So you can see where I started the thing, like there were like some sort of like loading code, and then it says like grasping arm, rotating arm. So for example, if I click play again, you can see that the different robots are printing things such as grasping, rotating, can, back, and things like that. So the console is usually quite important in order to make sure that everything is working as expected. We can print messages here in order to see what the robots are doing. So then we can explore this toolbar here. One of the most important things on the toolbar is the plus sign. If we press this plus sign, which we will do later on, it's the way we have to add new components here to the scene tree. And remember, because we are adding them here, they will also come here. We can reset to the initial viewpoint. So for example, if I'm like that and now I click this sign, it just goes to the initial configuration that I set. We can open, save, we can reload the world, and then here we can play the simulation, so it plays. We can also pause the simulation. We can also play like the simulation one step at a time. So now I'm clicking and you can see how the robot is moving one step at a time. We can also press here in order to move it faster, which is probably something that interests us. If we have some kind of like optimization algorithm and, we want to execute it many times, we want it to run it as fast as possible. And something quite important is that we can hide the rendering if we press this button. And the thing that why we want to hide the rendering is because if we have some algorithm that we want to test and we want to see, how to optimize the environment, and we are running like thousands of different simulations, we can just hide the rendering and press simulator, and then it's going to be like super fast, like it doesn't get any faster than that. And this is, we are not using as much computer power because we are not doing 3D things. Meanwhile, the computer is doing all the calculations. We can also record a video, we can also take a picture. And then finally, something which is quite important is this button here, which resets the simulation. And it does many things. But the two main things it does is that you will see that each robot and the cans are going to go to the origin. Like you can see the cans here again, and the belt is around here again. But you could also see that the camera was also reset to the origin. And if, for example, I was adding different robots and moving them around and I was clicking here, it will also be saved to the origin, like to the start of the simulation. So you will often, I will explain about this later, but you will often do a mistake that I've done many times, which is that I'm modifying the scene and I add new things and I add new robots and things like that. And then I press this and everything disappears and goes to the start. And this is because I forgot to save. And then if you go here into file, you will find your usual like Control S, which means save. But here Control S, it's only going to save things from the text editor. If we actually want to save the wall, like the robot, its positions, characteristics and everything, we need to click Control Shift S. So remember that, the key is Control Shift S to save the different robots and everything. And here you have, the top toolbar with file, edit, view, and all these kind of things. You have access to the help, different wizards to start new projects. Probably one of the most interesting ones is view. For example, you can click on an object to follow how it goes around. You can do some of the things like the restore the viewpoint that I showed before. You can also do like wireframe rendering if you want, which is quite good to see different collisions. And something that I find like really important here is if you go to optional rendering, and you can, for example, get like show distance sensor rays. And here you can see, for example, that in this tool here of this robot, we have a distance sensor, and this distance sensor, it's basically stopping where the grippers are stopping. So this is the sensor that the robot is using to detect when a can of soda, it's near enough so that it can grasp it. So it's quite important sometimes when you are working to calculate distance rays, what's going on, to be able to visualize the different sensors in order to see, like, for example, why the can is not getting grabbed, why the robot is not moving. Well, it's probably because there is some mistake with the sensors that using view we can actually see it. So just now remembering about the movement a bit, how to move around. So left mouse, left click is going to enable me to rotate the 3D scene. With the wheel, I can zoom in and I can zoom out. I can also use the wheel to rotate and twist strange things, but I never want to do that. And then with the right click, I can pan around. I mean, if you have played video games or other kind of 3D software, this is just the way it works. So now the next thing we are going to discuss is how to move the robots. So once you click in a robot, you are going to see that there are 3 arrows, which are around like X, Y, Z, how to move the robot. So for example, if I click on this robot and I click on the green arrow, as you can see here, I can move the robot around here. If I click on the blue arrow, I can move the robot up and down. Or if I click on the red arrow, I can move it like here. So this is a way of moving a robot. Like, remember that here you can also go to translation and change the position. You know, if you know exactly what the robot is going to be at the micrometer, you can directly type here. If you press on this kind of like behind the arrows, this kind of circles, you can also rotate the robot. So you can see how I'm rotating the robot, you know, with the green one. Something which is also like important sometimes to move a robot is that if I press shift, so now I'm pressing shift and now moving the robot, I can like freely move it over the XY plane, over the, you know, green and red plane. And then if I press shift and I press right click, you know, I'm rotating the robot over this plane with a lot of precision. And then if I press shift and I press left and right at the same time, I can move the robot like up and down. So, you know, with the left click, I can move it, and then with the left and right click, I can lift it. And now to showcase like the next bit of functionality, I think the last one of this video, I am going to go to this demonstration. So something that Webots also enables us to do is to apply forces to the different objects. So for example, here you can see like this, you know, a small robot here. So if I press like the Alt, so in the keyboard the Alt, and I press like, and then left click from the robot towards somewhere else, you can see that I'm applying some force in newtons. Like here is like 0.024 newtons. So I'm just getting the robot to move again, and you can see that it's moving. So now I'm going to start applying a force. You can see that the robot starts moving because I'm applying like 0.5 newtons, and if I keep pressing like stronger, you know, the robot just goes to its side and stops, you know, stops working. And finally, I can also apply like a torque. So with like a Alt and left click, I'm applying force. Meanwhile, with the Alt and right click, I'm applying a torque, which is, you know, slightly like different. It's like a rotational force. So basically, this is everything I wanted to discuss on this video. Just remember that you have like the 3D view. Here is where you write your code. This is the scene 3, where here this one is quite simple, like there are 3 boxes and 1 robot. You know, here is like the output, for example, here from the sensors. We can pause, play the simulation, we can go back to the beginning. Here, for example, we are showing the different sensors, but that's, you know, that's pretty much it about the user interface.